The Hug by Soma Holiday. Can I hug you, Kachan? The question had surprised Izuku, partly because it had broken the long silence between the two boys, but mostly because he hadn't actually intended on asking it. The question had sort of just slipped out. It had become sort of a routine for both of them to sit in the dorm common room after the more intense patrols that they had together at the Endeavor Agency. On those days, they usually came back in the late evening, washed and changed, then sat without saying a word to each other. It was their way of unwinding and processing the day's events. Most of the time, they just sat and surfed the internet on their phones. There had been a few times when Izuku had fallen asleep there, on the common room couch, but he'd always wake up in his own bed. It made the butterflies in his stomach go crazy to think that Kachan had carried him to his bed and tucked him in. Izuku always repaid the blonde boy the following morning by making him tea. On the present evening, when Izuku's question had broken the ever-present silence, they had just returned from their most exhausting day yet. They had taken down several villains, which meant mountains of paperwork. On top of that, Kachan had gotten into a heated argument with a reporter that criticized the collateral damage his quirk had caused. In the common room, they had both sat physically and mentally exhausted. Kachan hadn't even been scrolling on his phone like he usually did. He had just been staring dazedly at the wall with a small bandage covering a cut on his cheek. Now Kachan was looking at Izuku as if he had just lost his mind. What the fuck? Why would you even ask that? The truth was that Kachan simply looked like he needed a hug, but if he had said that, then the blonde would probably blast him away. So instead, Izuku just looked away, his face feeling as if it were on fire, and choked out, I just want to. Kachan studied him for a few moments before rolling his eyes. One fucking hug, got it? Izuku's exhaustion suddenly disappeared. He was filled with excitement and wonder at Kachan's unexpected acceptance. He shuffled closer to Kachan, who sat there staring at him with wide eyes and a dusting of pink on his cheeks. It began as the most awkward hug of Izuku's life. Kachan sat there like a statue, making no attempt to return the hug, as Izuku wrapped his arms around the boy from beside him on the couch. Blonde spikes intermingled with green curls, and Izuku's senses were filled with Kachan's smoky scent, which not even expensive shampoos and body washers could ever completely cover. On one hand, it was thrilling to break the barrier of casual touch after all these years. But on the other hand, Izuku was worried that this hug was just awkward and uncomfortable for Kachan. Maybe this had been a bad idea. Izuku moved to release the other boy from his arms, but Kachan growled, Did I fucking tell you to stop? Izuku's eyes were wide as dinner plates. Did Kachan really say that? He shakily obeyed the command to keep hugging, even hugging the other boy slightly tighter. They sat like that for what must have been close to 10 minutes before Kachan's hard, tense muscles started to slowly relax. He still didn't return the hug, but every bit of progress was exciting to Izuku. His poor heart was beating like crazy as Kachan finally broke his statue act and gently leaned his head against Izuku's, letting out a contented sigh. Izuku was feeling dizzy, drunk on Kachan's comfort. He even ventured to slowly rub small circles in the blonde boy's back in an effort to soothe him even more, and it worked. Kachan relaxed to the point where he was leaning his entire body weight on Izuku. His breathing was slow and rhythmic, and Izuku found that matching it with his own breath helped to calm his heart down. He felt so connected to the other boy. Izuku reached up to gently card his fingers through soft blonde spikes. God, he was so in love with this explosive boy, who was so calm and relaxed in his grasp. It wasn't long until Izuku could hear soft snoring from the other boy. Kachan had actually fallen asleep in his arms. It felt perfect, like it was the place where the blonde was meant to be. He didn't want Kachan to sleep anywhere else. The only flaw with his plan was that since Kachan had fallen asleep, there was no one to carry Izuku to his room once he also fell asleep, there on the couch in the common room, holding Kachan. Izuku woke to the sound of giggles. His classmates had found them there, cuddling together in their sleep, with Kachan's arms wrapped tightly around him.